everybody, welcome to Silverstone for the 8th race of the International GTOpen season, as we are just getting towards the business end of the season as we head into the summer break at the end of 60 minutes of racing today. Already been to some of Europe's finest circuits, and you join myself, Ben Evans, on a very overcast afternoon now here in Silverstone. The rain has just started to fall a couple of moments ago, and therefore we are going to have a 5-minute delay to the start of the race to give the drivers just a few more opportunities to inspect the track. There is the championship leading car of Fabrizio Crostani and Thomas Biaggi. Biaggi Crostani, excellent drive to second place yesterday, and continuing their steady build of this championship, hopefully for them, championship winning season. They only had one win so far, came in race 2 in Paul Ricard. Well, let's take a look back at everything that happened yesterday, because it was a race full of drama and entertainment. Off the line, it was Colm Ledegar who led into Copse, with Gustavo Jackerman and Craig Dolby busy disputing second. Also pushing through the order early on was Phil Keane, as behind there was disappointment as Colin Noble tangled with Sally Yuluk, but it did prompt an inspired recovery drive from Yuluk. Gustavo Jackerman, as the race unfolded, he was struggling to get the BMW to hook up for the slow corners. It meant that he was first overtaken by Phil Keane, then by Craig Dolby. Meanwhile, Yuluk was in inspired form, picking his way past Manuel da Costa and picking up through the field. Craig Dolby didn't take too long to dispatch Phil Keane, and then was able to get into the battle with Colm Ledegar and Alex West post pit stops once Thomas Enger took over at the Wessex Lamborghini. That car was able to fly away, as there was then a frenetic fight for second place, with Fabrizio Crostani carving first of all past Sean Balfe, and then moments later Alex West. In the same breath, however, Balfe was demoted by Peter Schotthuis, making his debut in the Theo Martin BMW. And Schotthuis was also able to pass West, which sadly ended with a big spin for West that saw him spinning down the order. Late on, Sean Balfe was also passed by Ewan Hankey, continuing that charging recovery drive in the TF Sport Aston Martin. GT Honours went to Jamie Stanley and Paul McNeely on their debut in the championship in the FF Course Ferrari. But for Thomas Enger and Craig Dolby in the Wessex team, it was a day to remember. Team principal Nigel Mustle delighted as Dolby and Enger took the win from Crostani and Biaggi, then Schotthuis and Miguel Ramos. Very happy drivers in Parc Fermé, and this is what it means for the championship points. Crostani and Biaggi 20 points now clear of Sean Balfe and Phil Keane, with Miguel Ramos in a very close attendance in third. Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy be hoping for a good result today, as will Fernando Mounier and Gustavo Jackerman from 6th in the championship. But there is still half the season to run as we begin that second half of the year this afternoon here at Silverstone. There is the Garage 59 McLaren of Duncan Tappy heading towards the grid, and Duncan qualifying in 6th place ahead of the Balfe Motorsport McLaren. And this is a new car for the weekend for Sean Balfe and Phil Keane. They've switched from the Ferrari to the McLaren and are learning with each and every session. And I was talking to both Sean and Phil earlier, they were saying that the car is just a very different driving style to what they've been doing previously in the Ferrari, and they've been adapting through the weekend. That said, they really like the car, really like what they're getting out of it, and in particular the potential. Well, Ewan Hankey yesterday was one of the stars of the race in the TF Sport Aston Martin. And Ewan lines up from 3rd on the grid. Aston Martin advantage. He and Sally Yuluk, despite having fantastic pace all season, haven't yet scored their first podium. It means that they are currently 8th in the championship standings, but will today here at home at Silverstone be their first trip to the rostrum, or rather it's their second trip to the rostrum after they did get on the podium in Paul Ricard in that dramatic second race. Also looking for a good result, the Sporting New Mercedes of Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardinia, always front runners in the GTAM class. Here is the Teo Martin BMW of Fernando Mounier, Gustavo Jackermann. It is started by Fernando Mounier. I think the slightly cooler track conditions will help the team, it will help the management of the Michelin tyre. Now, is Mounier going to go for a second lap? The pit lane is open for 10 minutes in advance of this race because it has been declared a wet race, so the driver's taking the opportunity to get some sighting laps underway, see how the track conditions are different from qualifying earlier on, and also to see if it's worth a gamble with a new tyre strategy. I suggest it's not, because although we've had some drizzle, it's not raining hard, and you can see there's no water glistening off the track. Here comes Alex West in the Garage 59 McLaren. He and Com Ledergaard still in pursuit of that elusive first win. And that, I hope, isn't a problem for Fernando Mounier. Some work ongoing in the rear right corner of the Teo Martin BMW. Just wondering whether Fernando Mounier's radioed in with a slight issue. So a little bit of work ongoing for Mounier. Hopefully he'll be able to get out on track before the pit lane closes. So here is the pole position car of Jamie Stanley in the FF Course Ferrari. And Jamie, absolutely phenomenal lapping qualifying this morning. What it does mean, though, is that yesterday's GTAM winners have been reclassified as Pro-Am. And Jamie drove brilliantly in a car that the team is still learning, and FF Course delighted with the result. Second on the grid is Peter Schotthorst in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW that he shares with reigning champion Miguel Ramos. Peter making a very impressive debut in the championship yesterday and really able to get the most of that of the BMW late on in the race. Deep in conference with Miguel Ramos, just making sure that everything as it should be, possibly just talking about do they want to soften off bits of the car in case it gets a little bit slippery. And this is always the really big gamble in races with changeable conditions. It was drizzling a few moments ago, it's not anymore, but as you can see the skies are slate grey. Third on the grid then for Ewan Hankey, Sally Ulick in the TF Sport Aston Martin. We'll sell it in conversation with Ewan Hankey. This is a track that Ewan of course knows very well and raced with great success in the Formula Renault and also the Porsche Carrera Cup in the United Kingdom. Will he and Ulick be able to get their first win? Fourth on the grid for yesterday's race winners, the Automotive Lamborghini Gallardo of Thomas Enger and Craig Dolby. The car still making its way to the grid, but Craig Dolby deep in conversation there with motorsport journalist Peter Scherer. Here is Thomas Enger at the wheel of the car. So the Wessex Vehicles Lamborghini to the grid. Here is the championship leader, and that is Fabrizio Crestani, the Orange One Team Lazarus entry. Crestani alongside Thomas Biaggi, very potent driver pairing. What they have got the challenge of today is a lot of success seconds to overcome, because the way performance is balanced in the championship is success seconds from previous results, and consistent run of podiums for Crestani and Biaggi, meaning they will have a longer pit stop than others. Sixth on the grid for the Garage 59 McLaren, Duncan Tappy and Michael Benham Tappy. Deep in concentration, also just having a drink as well. Thumbs up from Duncan. Another driver who can always be relied upon to put together a very strong performance. Coming to the grid then, Fernando Mounier. That's good to see that he's been able to get out onto the track and take his place on the grid before the pit lane opening window came to a close. He lines up in 7th. 8th place, Rob Weldon and Tom Ashton in the Raw Motorsport Radical RXC GT3. Rob and Tom were in good contention yesterday, and the thinking, talking to the Radical team earlier on, is that P5 could be realistic. Our understanding is from the grid that it's now starting to rain that little bit more heavily, which is not, and you can see indeed the spots forming the car, and that's the last thing that Sean Balfe would want. Now, do they make a gamble and go with wet tyres at the last possible moment? Another British driver lines up in 10th. That is the vastly experienced, prodigiously talented Martin Short in the V8 Racing Renault that he shares with Philippe Barrieroth. Martin Short, a race winner here a few years ago in the GT Cup Championship. in his then Steve the Mosler, Miguel Sardinia and Manuel da Costa in the Sport & U Mercedes lining up in 11th, and they will surely be giving Short and Barry Aroth a run for their money for GTAM honours this afternoon. Steve Burgess in the Radical Works car making his GT debut this weekend. Steve, who has been a front runner, indeed champion in domestic radical racing in the United Kingdom for the first few years, now making that step up in level, and this could be quite the race for him. And then Alex West and Com Ledegaard lining up in 13th. Ledegaard offering some last-minute words of wisdom. It will today be the day that they get their win. The closest that West has come to victory previously was going into that last lap in Estoril when he had contact with Fabrizio Crostani. So the signal given to clear the grid. And as they head on to the formation that we'll see whether or not it's raining across the whole circuit. It's a long and broad layout here at Silverstone. Therefore, it is quite possible it could be raining in this section of the track, but not necessarily over on the far side of the track. Well, happy birthday to Jamie Stanley. Will he get a birthday victory? We'll find out in the next hour or so, as he is poised to start from pole position. The mechanics all rushing back to the pit garages because we're seconds away from the start of the 8th race of the International GTOpen season, as the rain is starting to come down here at Silverstone. This could be really quite something in the early stages. Let's have a look at how they line up in full then, with that front row of the grid of Jamie Stanley, phenomenal lap in the FF Course Ferrari, and Peter Schotthorst in the Teo Martin BMW. Then Ewan Hankey and Thomas Enger, a very strong row 2. Row 3 of the grid, Fabrizio Crostani and Duncan Tappy. Again, they will be looking to challenge. Row 4, Fernando Monnier and Rob Weldon. Watch for the Radical. It went very well in the wet, remember, last year in Monza. 5th row of the grid, Sean Balfe and Martin Shaw. I think Martin will relish these conditions, and Sean also will be able to pick his way through the pack. Miguel Sardinia and Steve Burgess, row 6, and then Alex West and Com Ledegaard could well feature on the podium as we head towards the latter stages of the race. It's a 60-minute race this afternoon. There is, of course, the mandatory pit stop, and that comes 24th, 36-minute point in the race. So the last couple of mechanics clearing the grid, then they'll be off behind the pace car on the formation lap. Seconds away from the start of the race. Anxious moments for Teo Martin, the principal of the eponymous BMW squad, in garage, watching to see what Peter Schotthorst can do from second on the grid. Fernando Monnier also will be hoping to stay out of trouble. It could get a little bit slippery. The driver's going to have a voyage of discovery on this formation lap. As I say, we've only seen the camera shot so far from the pit straight, so it's going to be as they head through Beckett's, then on towards Stowe, where we'll see whether or not a quick dive into the pits to put some wet tyres on may be a good idea or not, as Stanley leads them away in the FF Course Ferrari, weaving about, trying to get some heat into what we understand to be the Michelin slick tyre that he's still got on the car. Joined for the race once more again by the British GT4 champion, Jamie Chadwick. And Jamie, you've been on the grid. It looks like it's raining properly now. Yeah, I think about 10 minutes ago it wasn't any rain at all, and then now it's really starting to come down. So they're all out on slicks by the looks of things. So if it comes down any harder, I think they're going to have to look at pitting for wets. But yeah, it should make something interesting for this race, make it exciting. So these guys are all pros, so they're sure they'll handle the situation very well. Well, what they'll be hoping, of course, is that it's just a passing shower and it's warm enough today that the water will almost burn off as soon as it hits the asphalt. But nonetheless, if you're waiting to get in the car, the last thing you want is your co-pilot hurtling into Copse Corner for the first time, potentially without an awful lot of grip. Now, just looking down the Hanger Straight, and we can see the lights just starting to glisten a little bit off the track surface, which suggests it's quite slippery.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be quite greasy, and these are the worst conditions when it gets a bit greasy, especially because over the weekend loads of rubber's gone down from all the other classes that have been out racing, so now a bit of water on this rubber makes it super slippery for these guys. So they'll be out on this formation lap looking to find where the grip is, work out how wet or how dry it is.
Well, there's going to be 2 points of transition, aren't there? Because first of all, do you think, is it wet enough for wet tyres? Secondly, is it actually damp enough to start taking the wet line, which is the outside of the corners where all the rubber and grit is, and you might get a little bit more traction?
I would say no, it's not wet enough for wets yet, but I definitely think they're going to have to look at other lines, maybe off where the rubber is, looking for where they can find a bit more grip, which is what they will, whilst getting as much temperature into the tyres as they can, they'll be looking to find where those grip areas are.
So just to explain what we've got to look forward to, it is a 60-minute race. There is the mandatory pit stop. It comes between 24 and 36 minutes. They can't top up with fuel today, but they might elect to change tyres. Now, Jamie Stanley, it is his birthday today. He starts from pole position in the FF Course Ferrari. Alongside him, Peter Schottels, who was so impressive yesterday in the Teo Martin BMW. But as ever, strategy plays a part. We've got some very quick drivers, not least Com Ledegar, who will take over for the second half of the race. So you're going to see some cars pushing very hard early on, others just staying out of trouble, letting the race come to them and see if they can push after the pit stops.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see them get into formation now, it's a bit of a reverse from yesterday. Some of the quicker guys that were in the car in the second half yesterday are starting the car today, so we'll see them try and get their heads down whilst finding grip in these conditions. We'll see them try and work their way up to get as much of a buffer as possible, so when their teammate gets in, they're in a comfortable position.
Well, they're forming up now side by side as they head into Brooklands. And it is, of course, going to be the rolling start. Who's going to get the jump into Copse? Will there be much grip into Copse? Certainly the track surface doesn't appear to be glistening through Luffield, but it's going to be a voyage into the unknown. Slick tyres are slightly slippery. Copse corner, this should be pretty entertaining at the very least, as it is Jamie Stanley who paces the field, coming through Woodcote alongside him, Peter Schottels. Then it's the Aston Martin Ewan Hankey, the Lamborghini Gallardo of Thomas Enger. We wait for the red lights to change to go racing for the 8th time this year in the International GTOpen, and they're underway on towards Copse, and Enger jockeying for position. So is Ewan Hankey, and Hankey moves into second. Enger goes third as Schottels slips down to fourth, if not more, because Duncan Tappy is also well away and is in fact challenging Thomas Enger. The bright orange McLaren of Duncan Tappy, though, has to slot into fourth, but it's Jamie Stanley who's got the lead from Ewan Hankey, Thomas Enger, Duncan Tappy as they swing through Beckett's and onto the Hanger Straight for the first time.
Yeah, it's a really good start for the guys on the inside row there. Ewan Hankey and Duncan Tappy have made up a couple of positions each. So, yeah, it's a bit of a slip into the unknown now. They're going down into Stowe to find where the grip is. This is where it looks like the track's a bit wetter, so we'll see how they get on coming down here.
Rob Weldon also looking to the inside of Fabrizio Crostani, and there was almost contact between the pair of them as they somehow got through. And that was very, very close. Weldon not taking any prisoners in the early stages. And the Radical team really confident, if the conditions do go a little bit more inclement than they currently are, that car could feature right at the front of the field. They head out of club for the first time on towards Abbey, and Ewan Hankey just taking a lap or so, find the grip bed in, and then I'm sure he'll be looking to challenge Jamie Stanley. And this, Jamie Chadwick, is the point where it's really difficult to lead the race because you are the pioneer in finding where the grip is.
Yeah, exactly. Jamie's going into the unknown a little bit, so Ewan's actually in the best position here. He can find where the grip is, see what Jamie's doing, learn from his mistakes, find out his breaking points. So yeah, wouldn't necessarily want to be leading the race in these kind of conditions, but Jamie's doing a great job thus far, and yeah, he's trying to get his head down, but Ewan's right there up behind him.
Meanwhile, Fabrizio Crostani ahead of Rob Weldon as now Ewan Hankey thinks about pulling the pin. He looks to the inside of Jamie Stanley as they turn through Brooklands into Luffield. Stanley just leaves half the door open on the way, and he closes it on the way out as the car squirms repeatedly as he gets the power down. And Ewan Hankey absolutely knows to tell. This is what we want. Ferrari, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, all fighting for the lead here at Silverstone as Hankey looks to the inside as they turn into Copse. No way through for Ewan Hankey on that occasion, but Stanley runs out over the AstroTurf. Mind you, so does Ewan Hankey.
Yeah, Ewan's got a lot of pace in this Aston. The Aston goes really, really well in these conditions, so he's right up behind him. He's going to have to be a bit patient. Stanley's not going to be flustered by him, so he's going to have to be patient to find time to make the move, but I think down into Stowe's where he's going to be looking for sure.
Anthony Cheshire, the team principal of the FF course team, one of the nicest people you spoke to in the paddock, was overjoyed with the way that qualifying went. But now this is where it all really comes down to the driver, Jamie Stanley, who just about closes the door into Stowe. And Jamie, who started his career in Formula Ford 1600 racing, he raced in the Lotus on Track Elise Trophy for several seasons as well, before moving on to British GT Championship. He knows a lot of the tricks of the trade. He's not going to make this easy for Ewan.
Yeah, Jamie's very, very experienced in all sorts of cars. So he hasn't actually spent much time in this 488, but he's spent so much time in race cars that he knows exactly what he's doing in these kind of situations. Ewan obviously sat behind him, has more pace, will want to get past. He's also experienced, but he's got to be a bit patient as to how he goes about this.
Yeah, this is Jamie's first race in the car, and he's out front in an international GT race with Ewan Hankey and then the ex-Prost F1 driver Thomas Enger bobbing and weaving behind his tail, and Hankey looks for the lead into the loop. Jamie Stanley shuts the door just at the last minute, and as all of this is unfolding, we've got Thomas Enger sitting there in third, just watching, waiting, seeing what happens, and there is Anthony Cheshire along with Jamie's co-driver Paul McNeely.
Yeah, Thomas knows that there's 56 minutes left of this race, so any incidences now, he's there to pick up the pieces, but Ewan's really got to be patient now, got to find time to make the move, but he's got so much pace in that Aston, so hopefully he'll find his way past soon enough, but Jamie just looks effortless out front. He's driving away, but he's struggling to keep Ewan behind at this point.
Just interesting there, he just feathered the brakes, it seemed, in Luffield, just to get Ewan to just back off a second, take away the chance to challenge into Copse Corner. And it shows that even, fortunately, as the conditions are improving a little bit, if you know where to place the car, it can be very hard to find your way past. Now, we talked briefly about the pit handicaps that will kick in the success seconds through the pit stop cycle for those that have had good results in preceding races, and for Craig Dolby and Thomas Enger, that means they'll have 30 seconds extra time in the pits over some of their rivals, and therefore for Thomas, he really wants to try and get into the lead of this race and break clear.
Yeah, Thomas will want to get his head down, but it doesn't look like he's quite got the pace of the Aston or the Ferrari out front. He's sat there behind them whilst they're battling, but he's struggling to close right up onto the back of Hankey there.
Well, it was interesting, in talking to some of the drivers earlier, they were saying they were really feeling the effect of the turbulent aero from the cars in front on some sections of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, so it could be that Thomas is just seeing what happens now. This is also interesting. Duncan Tappy, Peter Schuttus and Fabrizio Cristani are all looking to join in, and we've got the leading 6 cars covered by just 3.8 seconds. They're covered by the length of the run from Club to Abbey. And then in 7th, we've got Fernando Monnier. 8th is Rob Weldon. 9th, Sean Bouth. Steve Burgess currently completes the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Duncan Tappy qualified a little bit out of position down in 6th. He's much quicker than that, I think. So he's going to be looking to find his way up onto the front as well with these guys and getting into a battle. But the top 2 certainly look like they're pulling away and setting some quick lap times now. They've found their own in these conditions. Along
the Wellington Straight, headlights ablaze for the race leader, Jamie Stanley. We're only 6 minutes in, and we have had this tense and tight battle for the lead. It's also going to be interesting as well in the second phase of the race. Paul McNeely, again, making a step up to this level. Sally Yullock also, compared to Ewan Hankey, not quite as experienced. That's going to be a tussle to watch for.
Yeah, for sure. Paul's been actually going really well in this car, but if yesterday was anything to go by, Sally was absolutely flying, albeit with a bit of red mist. So I think in this race, certainly, Ewan will know that maybe in the second half of the race, Sally might have a bit of an edge, but you've got Thomas Enger behind with Craig Dolby as a teammate, so it's all going to be to play for.
Yeah, I don't know, the TF team at the pit stop will just put a picture of Salah spinning on the first lap yesterday on the steering wheel just to get him back into that zone from race 1, because he was on inspired form.
There he is.
Yeah, there he is.
It's an amazing recovery drive yesterday, nonetheless, to come back to 4th from where they were. I think they'd definitely be looking to make amends for that today, or what could have been, I guess.
The gap between Jamie Stanley and Ewan Hankey goes out by a 10th of a second down the hanger straight, and Stanley runs out of Stowe into Vale on the brakes. The shower that we had seems to have blown through, so just well nobody gambled with wets, but even as the track conditions have improved, nobody really coming back to leaders. It shows that Hankey and Stanley have got really the pace at the moment. In fact, you spotted a few moments ago, they're really easing clear of Thomas Enger.
Yeah, they seem to be. The pace of the Ferrari especially seems to be quite quick, but in these conditions, although it's looking pretty much dry, the Aston's really got it great on the brakes. So although the Ferrari seems to have a bit of a grunt down the straight, those two seem to be pulling quite clear of the Lamborghini that won yesterday.
Now, here's the battle between Rob Weldon and Sean Balfe. They've raced previously in Radical cars, and Sean a little bit deep on the brakes into Village then. You'd have seen the tail of the Radical getting maybe a little bit too close for comfort. But then Rob Weldon running a little bit wide on the exit of the loop, just bumps across the curbs. That might give Sean Balfe the advantage as they run down the Wellington Straight towards the braking zone at Brooklands. Sean Balfe tucked up behind the Radicals. He's not going to be quite close enough to challenge, or is he? Weldon moves across, takes that inside line very, very early. Make sure there's no way through for Sean Balfe. Into the 5th lap of the race for our leading duo. And what I'd be intrigued about is if Ewan Hankey could find a way past Jamie Stanley, whether or not he'll be able to pull clear.
Yeah, I think he definitely looks like he's got pace, but as you said earlier, the turbulent air with the aero, especially through this Maggots-Beckett's complex, does have an effect. So it makes it difficult for Ewan to actually stay up close behind him, and that does prove to be going against him right now. But Jamie's doing a great job nonetheless out front. He's keeping him at bay. He knows where to place the car. So be interesting to see if Ewan can plant a move on the next few laps or not.
Certainly down the hangar straight, the 488 of Jamie Stanley able to keep the measure of Ewan Hankey. Here's the 3rd place car. The Wessex vehicles run Lamborghini Gallardo of Thomas Enger and Craig Dolby. Enger currently at the wheel. In 4th, we've got the Garage 59 McLaren of Duncan Tappy. 5th place is Peter Schutters, but their team manager has just been summoned to race control with immediate effect. So we'll see if Schutters has some sort of disciplinary issue. And then in 6th, it's Fabrizio Cristani. 7th, Fernando Monnier. But at the moment, the pace from Stanley and Hankey is beginning to stretch the field. It's beginning to open the fight up. And this is potentially very, very good news for Ewan Hankey and Sally Yuluk, because they don't have any success seconds, having not finished on the rostrum yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And they're both a very quick pairing in that Aston, and it's going really well for them. It looks very hooked up. Ewan's tucked up behind the Ferrari there, but not quite close enough to make a move, but he might in his head know that they haven't got that penalty, that they can afford to be a bit patient and afford to not make it or take any risks in this point in the race.
Well, Duncan Tappy, here he is in 4th, just beginning to ease away from Peter Schotthorst as well. And Duncan, would have been very disappointed with 6th place in qualifying. I think they would have hoped to push to repeat the pole position from Com Ledegar from yesterday, but sometimes it just doesn't quite work out like that. Then we've got this fight for 5th and 6th between Schotthorst and Fabrizio Cristani. Cristani, the championship leader, again knows that he has got Thomas Biaggi to take over from him in the second half of the race, but they've got a lot of success seconds to contend with as well. So any ground that Cristani can make will be very welcome. The low-lying Lamborghini Huracan chases the BMW into Beckett's. And talking to the BMW drivers, they were saying the car is just absolutely immense through the fast corners.
Yeah, I can imagine as we look at Sean Balfe just going for a move there, not quite managed to make up the inside. Oh, but there he is.
Into the loop, Rob Weldon sees him in time, and Balfe makes it through up into 8th and consolidates the leaders through Stowe. Hankey, you're absolutely right, Jamie. He's really struggling to get into Jamie Stanley's turbulent air, and it's just keeping him those couple of tenths of a second behind.
Yeah, and you see that big rear ring on the end, that's effectively useless when he's tucked up behind him. So all the difference that aero makes when you're out on your own doesn't make that difference when you're tucked up behind someone. So it is difficult, and when Ewan's tucked up right behind him, he'll be wanting to make a move quite quickly. So he's just being patient here. He's obviously got to save tyres and everything, so he's not going to be wanting to get too close and do anything too silly at this point in the race. So yeah, he's just finding his rhythm and sat behind Jamie, who's doing some quick laps nonetheless.
As Thomas Enger just sets the fastest lap of the race. Now, I'm one of the many people, I'm sure, who are watching at home who's sadly not driven a GT3 car with massive aero on it. When we talk about the effect of the aero, what does that mean as a driver in terms of your experience and what the car starts doing?
Yeah, I think a lot of knowledge of the car. When every car has different levels of aero. I think the Ferrari at front is very different to the Aston, and these guys, the pros, will know the differences in each car. When you jump into them, you feel the error, it's immense, you can feel it suck you into the ground, but when you sit up behind someone knowing exactly what the car's going to do, how it's going to react differently and not making mistakes whilst you're in that position is something that these guys that are pros and these guys with experience will learn to take forward with them.
Thomas Enger, another quick lap, another 0.2 of a second chipped away into the Stanley and Hankey battle at the front of the field, so he's now just 2 seconds back. And although this race has been absolutely breathless, we're only 11 minutes away from the pit window opening, and so it will shortly be turned on its head. I would expect, though, that we're going to see both Jamie Stanley and Ewan Hankey staying out pretty deep into the pit window. The same for Duncan Tappy in 4th. Don't know about Thomas Enger. He's maybe got the edge over Craig Dolby, but there's not much in it if they think there is the benefit in taking Enger out of this fight for lead and feeding him back into clear air. Yeah,
I think maybe trying an undercut for them might be something that they could try and do and get Craig out in some clear air so he can put some laps in before the others. But Jamie and Ewan will definitely be looking to stay out as long as possible alongside Duncan, who seems to be flying right now. So I know Duncan wasn't happy with his quali, but he's looking at getting some good pace.
A change for 5th, Fabrizio Cristani up ahead of Peter Schotthorst. So that is a switch as Cristani sets off in pursuit of Duncan Tappy. And again, the thinking is the best balanced package is the Lamborghini this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not Cristani can make inroads into Duncan Tappy. Here is Fernando Monnier in the second of the Teo Martin BMWs. And Fernando chasing down his teammate Peter Schotthorst in 7th. He has got a 7-second advantage over Sean Bouth in 8th. And just wondering if the pace is going away from Peter slightly, as Stanley seems to have a much bigger advantage over
2 purple sectors this lap. So this is looking to be a new fast lap of the race, and he's really starting to get his head down.
Which is absolutely brilliant stuff from Jamie Stanley. Can he get into the 2 sub-minute 1 second bracket? That's the question. Best lap of the race is 2 minutes 1.1, a 2 minutes 0.6 for Jamie Stanley. He sets the fastest lap of the race by half a second. He opens up 0.3 of a second over Ewan Hankey, but as both of them set their best laps of the race, they re-extend their advantage over Thomas Enger.
Yeah, that's a mega lap by Jamie there. His qualifying lap was a 57, I think, so they're absolutely flying in that Ferrari, seeing as it's a new car to the team. They're only been out this weekend, so awesome job.
Well, Jamie Stanley, who asked me to say that he's celebrating his 25th birthday once again today.
Once again, for the 10th time, is that?
Wouldn't want to comment. Is certainly giving himself a good birthday present at the moment. Fastest lap of the race so far, with Ewan Hankey in pursuit. Then that gap back to Thomas Enger, and then a big gap now from Enger to Duncan Tappy. Tappy to Cristani. That's worth keeping on because Fabrizio Cristani was half a second quicker than Duncan Tappy last time around.
Yeah, looking at Tappy's lap times though, he's very consistent. So whether he's just driving to a lap time now, looking at just doing that lap every lap, whilst others are fluctuating a bit more between faster and slower laps, I don't know. So be interested to see how this plays out. They're all got quite a big gap over each other now, so whether they're too worried about being caught or anything right now, I don't know.
Well, this is the point where they're now thinking, okay, what are the target lap times we want to run to? What do we need to do to make sure that there's plenty of life left in the Michelin tires? Because we've still got 3 courses of the race remaining. We've also had the entire field warned for track limits, which is not surprising. Now, here is Alex West, and Alex currently in 13th place, but he has got Con Ledegaard to take over in about 8 minutes' time. And Ledegaard, who led the first half of yesterday's race, we know can do some pretty wonderful things at the wheel of that McLaren. And Alex West is still there or thereabouts. He's not giving Ledegaard an absolutely impossible exam question here, because he is 40 seconds or so back from the race leaders, and that with some 35 minutes to play with, could be on for Ledegaard, as Cristani and Tappy's battle continues to swing in favour of Fabrizio Cristani, who takes another 0.3 out of Duncan.
Yeah, it's heating up, isn't it? So I think this is where the battle's going to be, at least for P3 and P4, or P4 and P5 rather. So Duncan might need to get his head down a little bit. He'll notice him coming into his mirrors, but as I said, Duncan's very consistent every lap within a tenth, so whether he is just driving to a lap time and might need to find a bit more time in that, I'm not too sure.
Michael Benham, who's in his first real full season of international racing, who'll take over from Duncan. We have seen him pull out a really fine turn of speed on a few occasions this year, and certainly if he's got the chance of sneaking a podium, if not a home win, then he will be able to find that pace. He's also very good at not being flustered with plenty of pressure from behind, so that is going to be worth watching, as Cristani starting to get that Lamborghini moving. And Fabrizio Cristani has been one of the revelations of the season, more than a match for Thomas Biaggi, his co-driver in the Lamborghini, and is just really comfortable hustling the Huracan.
Yeah, yesterday that car was absolutely flying, especially in the second half of the race when he was at the wheel. So he's going to be seeing Duncan Taffy, so he's going to be getting his head down, trying to get up onto terms with him and maybe making a move before the pit stop.
So the pit window, if you have just joined us, is just 6 minutes away. It's going to be open for 12 minutes until there are 24 minutes left on the race clock. So that is going to be worth about 5 laps differential in terms of strategy, which, given some differences in pace, could be worth 3 or 4 seconds per lap.
Yeah, the guys on the pit wall, the engineers and the team managers will be thinking about this, working out what the best strategy is. They obviously had yesterday's race to sort of find their feet a little bit as to what works best with other teams and things. So they'll know exactly what their strategy is in a perfect world. They'll know what their strategy is, and you never know, another downpour could happen and put that all into the mix. So we'll see how they get on, but they'll all know what they're planning on doing before.
Such a pessimist for the British summer. It's not going to rain between now and September, as Cristani gets ever closer to Tappy. This is the fight for 4th and 5th. They're chasing Thomas Enger in 3rd, Ewan Hankey in 2nd, Jamie Stanley, our race winner, as we approach 1/3 race distance here at Silverstone. This the best battle amongst the higher positions on the track. Behind them, it is Peter Schotthorst in 6th, Fernando Monnier in 7th, Sean Balfe in 8th, but losing ground to Fernando Monnier. Rob Weldon's 9th. In the second of the Radicals, it's Steve Burgess in 10th, ahead of Martin Short, who leads the GTOpen class from Miguel Sardina, and then Alex West should not be discounted either.
Yeah, both Alex West and Sean Balfe have very quick teammates jumping in for the second half of the race, and we saw yesterday Com and Phil as well were right up there getting decent gaps in these conditions. So I'll be interested to see if they stay there in the second half of the race. I think they'll look to make progress further up the field.
I think also the McLaren drivers might have been hoping for a bit more of an intense shower. It's such a finely balanced car, and it just gives them that consistency. As Cristani, he just is able to do things with that Lamborghini that at times defy belief. He just seems so confident in really flinging that car through the corners, and now he gets onto terms with Duncan Tappy, the 2 bright orange cars, the McLaren and the Lamborghini, about to really start dicing with each other. There's 40 minutes left on the clock as they head along the Wellington Straight towards Brooklands. So he just carves across into left-hander. Meanwhile, Ewan Hankey has come right back at Jamie Stanley. That last lap from Jamie wasn't quite as quick as Ewan's, and I would venture that this one has again given the advantage to Hankey, who gets within 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, Ewan's really got the bit between his teeth now. He's looking to get onto terms with Jamie. It's just whether he can make the move now in this turbulent air, especially through this complex. He really seems to be struggling in that Aston to stay up behind him, but he looks like he's got it hooked up and he's good on the brakes, so hopefully he can look at making a move.
I just love the styling of the Aston Martin as well.
Beautiful.
All the cars in this championship immaculately prepared, and the FF Corse and TF Sport teams doing both of their vehicles proud. They're great cars, they look fantastic. And now Hankey, headlights ablaze, just having another pop at Jamie Stanley before we get into the pit stop cycle. And this potentially is looking very good, you'd suggest, for Ewan Hankey and Sally Yullock to score their first victory of the season, because the way that the pit handicaps think are going to play out, plus the pace that we saw from Sally Yullock yesterday, is potentially really going to work in his favour. Meanwhile, Fabrizio Cristani all over the tail of Duncan Tappy. And are they being caught by Peter Schotthorst? Possibly, so that could become a 3-way fight. Out of Abbey, into Farm. And Jamie Stanley just not driving at all defensively, just sticking to the racing line and really just letting Ewan Hankey reach into his box of tricks. Yeah,
Jamie will know now where Ewan's struggling and how he's struggling to get past him. He knows he's quick, but Jamie now knows where he's strong, so he's going to be looking just to maintain the lead of the race without having to fluster too much, defend from Ewan. So be interesting to see later in this race when Sally jumps in as to whether they can get the jump, obviously, over the Ferrari.
I've often heard it described that driving a race car is a little bit like taking an exam on a treadmill, because you've got all the physical buffeting and activity going on in the car. At the same time, you're having to detach your mind from actually the act of driving to start thinking about what are my rivals doing, what's my car doing, where can I push, where do I need to be defensive.
Hugely, especially in GT racing when there are so many factors to be thinking about. Obviously you've got the endurance, so it's not always about one lap pace, but over the duration of an hour when it is quite physically tough, especially in these GT3 machines, you're thinking about a lot, you're actually getting hot in the car, so huge amount of concentration going through these guys' mind, but they'll be used to it, they know exactly what they're doing and where to be placed in the car in this situation.
Ewan Hankey just hooking up the apex. Here is Thomas Enger in third. Was possibly expecting him to be part of this lead fight a little bit more, Thomas Enger, but again, in the knowledge that they've got Craig Dolby waiting in the wings, their whole race pace could be very, very promising. Fight for fourth and fifth. Cristani, again, now he's got into the turbulent air behind Duncan Tappy. He's just struggling a little bit, and particularly through Stowe. They've got the crosswind down the hang straight, then suddenly they turn into the headwind out of Stowe. Yeah,
exactly. I was talking to Duncan at the start of the race, and he said in qualifying, the wind direction change for qualifying over yesterday seemed to make a massive difference. So, yeah, especially with a long straight like that, if you've got a headwind or a crosswind, it makes a massive difference to these lightweight cars.
Because if you've never been to Silverstone before, to say it's situated in quite an exposed piece of the countryside would be an understatement. It is often very breezy and blustery here. It's originally the perimeter roads of a World War II airfield, which over time has evolved into being the permanent race circuit that we have now. As the pit window opening in 2 seconds' time. And this is now the point at which strategy starts to come into play. I expect we will see coming into the pit lane very, very shortly the Garage 59 McLaren of Alex West, also probably the Balfe Motorsport McLaren of Sean Balfe. They would expect to see in at the start of the pit window. Ewan Hankey and Jamie Stanley going to of the SR1 Cup, as Jamie Stanley meanwhile accelerates through to complete his 13th lap of the race, and his lead over Ewan Hankey extends once more. And it's suggesting to me, Jamie, that Ewan is just struggling to consistently stay in that turbulent air.
It is difficult, especially because he'll know that he won't want to be overheating his tyres, being sat right behind the Ferrari if he can't get past. So he'll be looking just to get some consistent laps. He'll know, he'll be on the radio, he'll know what the situation is for the second half of the race. So that Aston seems to be hooked up and going really well. So Sally's got a nice car to jump into, and hopefully I think he'll come out in the lead of the race.
Thomas Enger in third. Well, clearly he's going to stay out a little bit longer in the Wessex Vehicles Lamborghini. Other pit stops too. I think we've seen all the pit stops. When the Theo Martin BMWs come in, it's going to be interesting. Possibly Fernando Monnier fairly shortly to hand over to Gustavo Jackermann. And Gustavo was saying that it's really a circuit of two halves for the BMW. Great on the straights, great in the high-speed corners, but really hard work through some of the more technical sections.
Yeah, but if there's anyone you want to be driving your BMW, you want to be Gustavo Jackermann. He's a top pilot, so I'm looking forward to watching him get out in that later in the race.
Another chance to enjoy some super slow motion. Lamborghini Gallardo. If the memory serves correctly, Thomas Enger raced in one of the wettest ever races we've had here at Silverstone, which was the 2000 round of the Formula 3000 Championship, which was one of those very, very wet Silverstones. It was when they moved the Grand Prix to April that year.
I think I would have just been born at that point.
Thank you for making me feel so old. It's massively appreciated. As another lap about to be reeled off then for our race leader, Jamie Stanley. He has led ever since the lights went out, so he's been at the front of the field now for the best part of 29 minutes. The pit window is open for another 7.5 minutes, which means they're probably going to have 3 more.
Yeah, they'll be a bit quicker than Michael and the McLaren in the second half of the race.
And here is Gustavo Jackermann to take over from Fernando Monnier. Again, a new set of boots for the BMW. Teo Martin team getting to work as Monnier straps in the incredibly popular Colombia driver, who really is very, very famous and well known, and rightly so in Colombia. As now we have still got Hankey trying to come back at Jamie Stanley, but that Ferrari just so beautifully poised, and whatever Jamie asks, it seems to be able to deliver.
Yeah, exactly. And Jamie's learning this car every lap. He's not done a huge amount in it. He's given a lot of time for his teammates to do more of the laps. So Paul's also learning it, and it's new for them. They're both in GT4 only last year. So for Jamie, this race is going to be a great first stint. He's going to be really, really pleased when he gets out. And I think he'll probably do another couple of laps at least in it.
Also just saw quickly the pit stop for Tom Ashton and Rob Weldon. So Ashton takes over from Weldon in the GTAM battle. By the way, that is currently Martin Short, who leads it as he has done since the start of the race. He's not yet come in to hand over to Philippe Barrieroth. Now, further back in the field, we thought Com Ledegaard was going to work some miracles. It looks like he's about to. He's just set the fastest middle sector of the race so far. And the fastest lap that he's looking to beat is a 2 minutes 0.6 from Ledegaard. So the leading trio head on towards Beckett. We're keeping one eye on them, one eye out for the Garage 59 McLaren. Ledegaard, who sets the fastest lap of the race. He does a 2 minutes 6 as well, but is now looking to carve his way through the order. He's got half the race to play with. We'll find out the gaps at the end of this pit cycle as Jamie Stanley just flashes his headlights. It was to one of the radicals, thinking a little bit further up the road, just to let him know that he is coming. Now, Jamie Stanley and Ewan Hankey, they're going to have to pit in within the next 4.5 minutes, so they're only going to have time to do this lap and then probably one more before they'll have to pit in. So they're going to have a lap and a half before the very last moment they could pit in. Now, this is the question about whether or not the TF Sport Aston Martin is going to try and undercut the FF Course Ferrari.
Yeah, I think if I were TF, and I know they're very, very good with their strategies, I've seen them in British GT, I think they'll be looking at coming in maybe this lap just so they can get Sally out in some fresh air and put in some inroads. And I know Sally's quick, so they'll probably be looking at doing that, but they might try and hang it out one more lap like the Ferrari.
We'll find out in a couple of moments as they hurtle down the Wellington straight once more, and coming towards the closing end of this, the 16th lap of the race. They then head into Luffield now. Jamie Stanley just taking the very wide entry to Luffield. It looks like it's getting a little bit darker, I have to say, from our Contrasports window. They're both going to go around for another lap, so they're both going to go to the very, very deep end of this pit window. Now, where is Thomas Enger in the Lamborghini Gallo? It looks like Enger is in, so Thomas Enger is pitting in from third place to hand over to Craig Dolby. Also in is Peter Schotthorst to pass over to Miguel Ramos. Now, here is Com Ledegaard. He set the fastest lap of the race last time around. He's been behind Peter Schotthorst on this occasion, so he only does a 2 minutes 1.2, which is still phenomenally quick.
Yeah, only a 2 minute 1.2.
So in comes Peter Schotthorst to hand over to the reigning champion, Miguel Ramos. Oh, such a slick pit stop. Schotthorst almost had his legs out of the car before the door had finished opening, and that shows the benefit of practice making perfect. Here is Thomas Enger strapping in Craig Dolby, but a little bit of examination going on with the tyres there. They've got, to say, an additional 30 seconds in the pit as a result of yesterday's success, as halfway through this last lap of the stint for Ewan Hankey and Jamie Stanley. And although they haven't been racing quite wheels where they haven't been overtaking, they've been so tightly managed and so close, as also out of the pit lane now goes Michael Benham, having taken over from Duncan Tappy.
Yeah, I think Duncan should be quite happy with that first stint. He's made up a couple of positions. I don't know if the McLaren was quite hooked up well enough in that stint. It looked like he's struggling a little bit towards the end, but certainly driving the wheels off it.
Philippe Barrieroth takes over from Martin Short as well in the V8 Racing Renault RS01. And Gullwings, always a spectacular design feature, as now the race leaders swing through Brooklands. They're about to come into the pits. This is one of the decisive moments of the race. We'll find out in a couple of moments as well what the gaps are heading into the latter stage of the race. Jamie Stanley, I'm sure, will get onto the pit limiter at the last possible instant. And Ewan Hankey the same, yes! They both have
Ewan's made a bit of time there as well on the pits. He's managed to use Jamie as a bit of a braking reference. You come round there as fast as you actually can until you get to the line where you have to stand on the brakes and get on the limiter.
And Jamie just was drifting towards the Armco as well.
Yeah, anyone may remember David Ashburn having a big shunt on pit entry. Kill me for saying so. If anyone remembers that, you never want to do that, but you want to be on the pit limiter late as possible.
So just so we don't embarrass him, that was David Ashburn on the pit entry.
Say it again.
Meanwhile, here is the change for Sally Yullock and Ewan Hankey. Ewan darts straight back into the TF Sport Garage. Sally Yullock completes his pit stop now. This is Com Ledegaard. Ledegaard absolutely flying, but he's going to have a lot of ground to make up to win this race. But if anybody can do it, it is Ledegaard.
Yeah, he's absolutely flying yesterday, and he certainly has the pace. And this undercut might work for them because he's got clear air now. He can put in some good laps. He's greening his sectors. So see how he gets on, but he's got a lot of ground to make up right now.
Here's Mike Benham in the sister Garage 59 McLaren. And what we want to see really is the point at which Paul McNeely and Sally Yullock emerge from the pits and where they are in relation to Craig Dolby. We are yet to have a double winner in a race weekend in the International GTOpen this season. And here comes Sally Yullock. So Yullock out.
Big advantage.
And here comes Paul McNeely. So McNeely out in what I make to be second place. So the Aston Martin has emerged clear of the FF Course Ferrari. And this is now a golden opportunity for Sally Yullock. Although McNeely, with a bit between his teeth, might be able to do something in third. It is Michael Benham. In fourth, Miguel Ramos. Fifth is Gustavo Jackerman. Sixth is Craig Dolby. And seventh is Thomas Biaggi. Eighth is Phil Keane. At the end of this lap, we're going to find out what the gaps are. But you have to say, this is looking very good for Sally Yullock, because you can just see in the background. So Gustavo Jackerman has got a lot of chasing to do, as does Miguel Ramos, as does this man, Michael Benham, because it's Paul McNeely who has emerged in second behind Sally Yullock. So Sally Yullock is the race lead. He's got the jump on Paul McNeely through the pit stops. Benham is in third. And at the end of this lap, we'll see what the gaps are with just 23 minutes to go.
Yeah, I think Sally's just got to keep a cool head now and just drive it to the finish, and he should hopefully win this race. But Paul and Michael there going to have some quick pros trying to catch them, but I couldn't believe how little racing Michael Benham had done. He's absolutely flying considering, and Duncan's obviously done a great job coaching him because he's going really well considering.
Well, this is the home race for Michael Benham. He has had one victory so far this season. That came in Estoril. A second win is looking unlikely. A podium, however, could be on the cards, and the chance to take some championship points out of Fabrizio Cristani and Thomas Biaggi could also be on the cards. Here's the race leader, though, Sally Yullock, and this is exactly the situation that he would have wanted to inherit. He's at the front of the field. The Aston Martin is working beautifully. It's got 22 and a half minutes left in the race. Oh, but what a battle we're going to have now, because Phil Keane has caught Thomas Biaggi, and they've got Craig Dolby just in front of them. This is the fight for 6th, 7th and 8th. But we'll find out at the end of this lap how far back they are, because if they start fighting, they'll slow each other down, and any chance of reeling in the cars for a podium will have disappeared.
Yeah, Phil's actually learning this car every lap. It's a new car for them this weekend, so he's getting quicker and quicker every lap. So I'll be surprised if I don't see him make more progress up the field, and got Jackerman not much further ahead as well.
So these are the gaps to bring up speed with. Sally Yullock is our race leader as we head into lap 19. He's 7.5 seconds clear of Paul McNeely. McNeely's got a 6-second advantage over Michael Benham in third. In fourth, it's Miguel Ramos. He's 9 seconds back from Benham. Fifth is Gustavo Jackerman, a further 5 seconds back. And then sixth is Craig Dobby. He's 4 seconds back. He's 32 seconds off the lead. Here is Gustavo Jackerman, who his first target is his Teo Martin teammate Miguel Ramos. And that last lap from Gustavo Jackerman was a 2 minutes 1.6, but really we'll find out at the end of this lap what pace Sally Yullock and Paul McNeely are running, and therefore whether or not it's realistic. What I can tell you though is that Michael Benham is lapping in the low 2 minute 3 second bracket, so it's not going to be the work of a moment here for Jackerman and Ramos to chase him down.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. These guys at the front end, they've got big enough margin, I think. It's only 20 minutes left, so if they can hang on, but it's going to certainly make it interesting for the last part of the race anyway.
Certainly will, as Yackerman flings into Abbey and Farm, and then on towards Village and the Loop. What about behind Phil Keane, chasing Thomas Biaggi? Now these are the two top cars in the championship, so any points that Phil Keane can take off Thomas Biaggi will be very welcome for he and Sean Balfe. So Biaggi just runs a little bit wide coming out the loop, in towards Aintree. Now that last lap from Sally Ulick, he's just come past our commentary box. He does a 2 minutes 4.0. Paul McNeely hasn't yet come past. He does now 2 minutes 5.5. So that means that Ulick is building his advantage over McNeely to the tune of a second and a half on that last lap. Michael Benham did a 2 minutes 4.4. Ramos a 2 minutes 2. And Yackerman a 2 minutes 1.6. So Yackerman is closing on the race leader, Sally Ulick, at a rate of almost 3 seconds a lap. We've got 19 minutes to go, so there's time for 10 more laps. It could just be on, you know.
It could. I think the only downfall for Yackerman is he's going to have to get through the traffic quite quickly if he's going to want to make this work. Michael Benham looks to be catching Paul McNeely as well, so whether that's another battle that's going to happen later on in this race, we'll see.
This is why I absolutely love this championship. It's that second half of the race. When you get into the chase mode, you see the gaps that are going to have to start coming down as this gaggle of cars fighting for 6th, 7th and 8th come on to the hangar straight. Phil Keane riding behind Thomas Biaggi, and all the while they're running in the low 2 minute 2 second bracket. They're still gaining on Sally Ulick at a rate of about 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap. They can live with that for now. But it depends as well, because I'm sure that you and Hank, you'll be on the radio to Sally Ulick saying that if you can just do a 2 minute 3.5, 2 minute 3.7, that's more than enough to give you the win. There's Jamie Stanley, leader of the first half of the race.
Be pleased with his work.
Yeah, now going to have a very anxious 18.5 minutes to see whether or not he and Paul are going to end up on the rostrum.
Sally's put in 2 good first sectors, so he's started to find his feet now in this car, in this race. So maybe a slightly quicker lap to edge out a little bit from Paul McNeely.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be worried about Paul McNeely and Michael Benham. The cars to worry about are going to be Gustavo Yackerman and Miguel Ramos. So it was that's a much better lap from Sally Ulick, a 2 minutes 3.4. So we watched the fight for 6th. And that's the sort of pace that he needs. Paul McNeely, 2 minutes 5.0. Michael Benham is now just 3 seconds back from Paul and is closing at the rate of 2 seconds a lap. And then Miguel Ramos is 6 seconds back from Michael Benham. And Gustavo Yackerman just 2 seconds back from Miguel and closing on Miguel at 2 seconds lap again. Of the drivers chasing, Gustavo Yackerman is the one who is potentially going to be able to snatch this victory from Sally Ulick, but it's going to depend entirely, I think, really on, first of all, whether or not Miguel Ramos is going to allow Gustavo to get past him in the sister BMW, and thereafter if he can maintain that sort of pace.
Yeah, whether any team orders involved, but he's going to really have to be aggressive through the traffic if he wants to make this win work. At the minute, Sally's got a nice buffer, so I think it is going to swing Sally's way, but if Yackerman wants to get on with it, he's going to have to be very aggressive to get through the traffic as quick as possible.
Sean Balfe watching the progress of Phil Keane, who's currently in 8th. Now here come the two Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. The Vodafone car with the blue bonnet is Miguel Ramos. With the red bonnet, rather, the blue bonneted car is Gustavo Yackerman. Ramos and Yackerman. Ramos staying with the team this year. He went to the title with them last year, but that was in the McLaren. They're new to the BMW this year. Yackerman new to the championship. He flashes his headlights already very preemptively at Miguel Ramos.
Yeah, Yackerman's used to racing in the World Endurance Championship and has a lot of experience. So the Red Bull back driver will certainly be looking to get up onto terms with his teammate Ramos and hopefully try and win this race.
It's going to be very close. The gap between Yackerman and Sally Ulick is 23.5 seconds. And the other consideration here, of course, is there's every possibility you see Benham at the front of the picture catching Paul McNeely to get both of the cars onto the rostrum, as the wind just starting to whip up as well here at Silverstone. It's going to be another challenge to overcome. It's a very grey cloud as well that has just arrived over the top of Luffield that we can see from the commentary box. It isn't unlike the spaceship from the movie Independence Day. Now, Sally Ulick's last lap at 2 minutes 2.8. He elevates the pace again. Now he's got up to speed, and that, I think, is going to be enough for Sally Ulick to certainly score victory. The question is then going to be whether or not Gustavo Jackerman can move up to second, because he and Miguel Ramos are catching Michael Benham, catching Paul McNeely very quickly. This fight for second is only a couple of laps away from crackling into life.
Yeah, that's really impressive from Ulick. He's lapping faster than all 3 cars behind him, so he's got to just keep up that pace if he wants to win this race, and he seems to be doing just that.
It's the consistency, isn't it, that you need as well, as Gustavo Jackerman turns into Stone Alley. The challenge for the BMWs all weekend has been just keeping the very best of those Michelin tyres, not pushing them too hard. And for all of this speculation, we still have a quarter of the race to go, and this is still the fight and the train for 4th and 5th. Now, the next question is, can Paul McNeely get his elbows out and keep Michael Benham behind him? And as the pair of them battle, here is McNeely in second place in the FF Course Ferrari. And here comes Michael Benham in the Garage 59 McLaren. Benham, who did a superb job in Paul Ricard, keeping Sally Ulick behind him, is now going to have to go on the offensive and then possibly the defensive, because there's the armada of BMWs coming. There's the Ferrari to deal with first of all.
Yeah, whatever these two do now, they won't want to back each other up into the very fast Ramos and Jackerman, so they'll be looking to not hold each other up too much whilst trying to get going.
A little bit of a wobble there from Paul as he came into Brooklands. Just reconsidered how hard he wanted to get on the brakes before moving across and claiming the line. A warning flag for Colin Noble Jr. for disrespect of the track limits, as Benham using every inch of the road, chasing Paul McNeely. Looming large behind them is Miguel Ramos. Ramos catching the rate of 2 seconds a lap. Gustavo Jackerman continuing to catch Miguel Ramos, but Sally Ulick now matching Miguel Ramos and Gustavo Jackerman for pace.
Yeah, Sally's finding pace every lap now. He's absolutely flying. He's just done a 2:22, which is faster than most of the guys behind him, matching someone like Miguel Ramos. So he's absolutely flying in that Aston.
And it's as if yesterday that spin just unlocked something in him. He found those extra few percent where he knows now he can push, and he's just been phenomenal all weekend. And this is so far a really superb stint.
I think Sally is very quick. From what I've seen of him, he's been absolutely flying every time he's been out. It's just avoiding making those mistakes. He's obviously new to racing, so just avoiding making those mistakes. A little one yesterday, although a bit of a racing incident, meant that they couldn't quite fight for a podium, but today they haven't put a foot wrong and they're going very, very well.
Right, now it's on, because Paul McNeely's been caught by Michael Benham. They've both been caught by Miguel Ramos. Gustavo Jackerman there is looming with intent. Now, for example, Jamie, place yourself into Michael Benham's shoes. What do you do? Do you attack? Do you defend?
Michael's got to look at getting this move done as soon as he can. He's been following Paul for a while, so he should know where he's strong or not. So he needs to be looking at getting this move done as soon as possible so he doesn't come under threat from the 2 BMs behind.
Of course, the other thing we should mention is this battle for 6th. We're currently watching with Craig Dolby, Thomas Biaggi and Phil Keane. They're catching Paul McNeely and Michael Benham at a rate of 3 seconds a lap. They are only 6 seconds back from this scrap as well. So there is absolutely everything to race for as they arrive into Brooklands. This is to complete the 23rd lap of the race. Sally Ulick's just headed past us. Another lap in the 2 minute 2 second bracket, and we've not seen much of Sally Ulick. He's driving absolutely superbly from the lap times that we're seeing. Now, Benham, he's probably got a window here of about a lap to try and find a way past Paul McNeely before he's going to have to really start worrying about Miguel Ramos.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to want to do it on this lap. That Ferrari looks very quick in a straight line, though, much quicker than the McLaren, so he's going to struggle to get onto terms with him unless he can get right up behind him through this Maggots and Beckett's complex now, but he doesn't seem quite close enough.
Yeah, he's going to have to really play to the strengths of the car in different sections of the circuit. That means probably through Vale and Club, it means probably through Village and the Loop, and then again at the end of the lap. There is an anxious Duncan Tappy watching the monitors in the Garage 59 pit box.
See how quickly the BMWs are catching them, though. They're really going to struggle. He's flashing his lights there. He's desperate to get past, but that McLaren just doesn't quite have the legs of the Ferrari down the straight, or the BMW for that.
And he can flash his lights all he wants. Paul McNeely is in second place here on merit. He is going to be racing to get onto the outright race podium, and he's going to make life as difficult as possible here for Michael Benham. Benham's life is going to get even harder because now the squadron of BMWs has arrived on Benham's tail as Michael Benham carries some excellent momentum out of club. Now, can he use the traction of the McLaren through Abbey and Farm? That might give him the chance to challenge McNeely on the brakes into Village, particularly as the Ferrari just looks a little bit wayward, and that's exactly what Benham's doing. He pulls out, he looks out of the bubble. Oh, he's just not, he needed to be half a car length closer.
Ramos just goes a little bit deep trying to avoid the McLaren, and the McLaren makes a move on the Ferrari. That's a beautiful move there by Benham, and he had to do that there, so really, really well executed.
Lovely move from Michael Benham to the inside line at the loop. He gains second place from Paul McNeely as Gustavo Jacobin is all over Miguel Ramos. He forces Ramos to move to the inside of the road. Suggests that there are no team orders coming from the Teomar team pit wall at the moment, as now Ramos takes his turn to challenge Paul McNeely. Jacobin challenging Miguel Ramos, and this is going to give Michael Benham the chance to make his escape as Ramos looks inside McNeely. That's very, very close. And
Ramos giving him good room there, but can he get the legs just down this straight? Oh, he looks like he's got a bit of an overlap. I think BMW's going to struggle to stay up at the inside just here.
Paul McNeely needs to shut the door into Copse. That's exactly what he does. As now Jacobin looks inside Miguel Ramos. Oh my goodness me, that was close. As Ramos swept across and covered the line just in time, and actually carries the momentum to challenge McNeely into Beckett. All the while, Gustavo Jacobin there, third in the queue, is biding his time. They've got Craig Dolby looming large on their tail as well. This is the fight for third place. Michael Benham has moved into second, and as you can see, he is saying, I've had enough of this, I'm trying to check out. Down the hangar straight, of course, we know that the Ferrari is good in a straight line. We also know that Gustavo Jacobin wants to dart past Miguel Ramos, and he looks inside Ramos now into Stowe.
Move. Oh, no, not quite.
Not quite. It tightens at Stowe, and Gustavo Jacobin's just found that out. He's also discovered that Miguel Ramos isn't champion for nothing in the International GTOpen. He is very experienced at this level, Miguel Ramos, and he is determined to get onto the podium.
Not want to be the team boss at Tia Martinez. They're right on the back of Paul McNeely now. They've really been held up. This is playing into the hands of Michael Benham, but the BMW's looking again for another move on Ramos. There we go, makes it
through he goes.
Beautiful move. That's the work of a proper pro out there, really experienced, great move into turn one of the F1 straights.
Brilliantly brave move there from...
Paul McNeely goes deep.
Brilliant move from Gustavo Jacobin to the inside of Miguel Ramos at Abbey. He was absolutely determined to get past, and now his next challenge is Paul McNeely. And again, they're going to have to do this pretty quickly because Craig Dolby, Thomas Biaggi and Phil Keane, there they come. So we've got these 6 cars all fighting for the last couple of places on the podium. Jacobin thinks about a little bit of a bite into Brooklands. He'll try and force McNeely to run wide, which he does. Now, can he get the cut back through Luffield as McNeely runs wide? Jacobin saw the door starting to open. He also sees it closing. And Gustavo, he joined us on commentary for the Euroformula Open earlier on. He said there's absolutely no way you can pass into Copse Corner. Let's see if he's true to his word or not as they turn through.
I think McNeely's definitely starting to feel the pressure from the guys behind, but he just needs to play on the strengths of the Ferrari, which is straight line speed, and he needs to work on that and not get too flustered by these 2 guys charging at his heels.
It's absolutely brilliant race this, as out front Sally looks second place is Michael Benham. This the fight for third. Paul McNeely doing everything he can as behind Phil Keane all over the tail of Thomas Biaggi. They've both caught Craig Dolby. Where do you look as they come down the hangar straight? Who is going to pull the pin and look where? Phil Keane is challenging Biaggi. Jacobin launches to the inside of Paul McNeely, but McNeely closed door, but Phil Keane further back. Let's have a look as we wait for them to come back into view, and Keane has done the move, and it's Craig Dolby who loses out to the Lamborghini of Thomas Biaggi and to Phil Keane. So Dolby gets shuffled back to 8th.
Yeah, 3 abreast there for Phil Keane, but great move by the looks of things, and he's going to be looking to get up onto terms with the 2 BMWs in this fight stuck behind Paul McNeely.
There's only 6.5 minutes of the race remaining. Sally Ullock leads by 23 seconds. He is very finely poised. Gustavo Jacobin fighting with Paul McNeely for third. As Jacobin, he's going to look for the inside line into Village, and McNeely runs a little bit wide, but it's going to give Paul the inside line for the loop. And Jacobin could be at the risk of a mugging here from his teammate Miguel Ramos. Ramos saw half a gap opening to the inside line. They are about to be joined by Thomas Biaggi. All the while, though, Benham in second place is gone. He is at least 3 seconds up the road now.
Paul's having a great time though. He's really getting his elbows out, battling with some of the best drivers in the world. It's a great job by Paul McNeely to keep him at bay.
Well, this is not bad, is it? Ferrari, BMW, Lamborghini, McLaren, as they turn through Luffield. We are going to head into about the 4th from final lap, and Gustavo Jackman has spent a lap behind Paul McNeely. He's not found a way past him, and Paul doing an absolutely brilliant job here of holding his position. He has given away another second or so to Michael Benham, but Jackman can't play to the BMW's strengths as McNeely gets the power down over the crest of the road into Beckett's. It's going to be quite the sort out down the Hangar Straight. McNeely runs a little bit offline, but there's no BMW's width. Yes, there is! Through goes Gustavo Jackman. He pushes McNeely offline, and Jackman snatches third place from Paul McNeely. But the Ferrari might be able to fight back along the Hangar Straight, and doesn't Gustavo Jackman knows it. He covers the inside line as they head towards Stowe. McNeely draws alongside. Thomas Biaggi looks to the inside of Miguel Ramos as well. They all have the accordion effect as they fan out. It all closes back in again, and Jackman is through. McNeely runs wide. The tail of the car kicks out, but Ramos can't quite take advantage as he now has to defend from Thomas Biaggi.
Yeah, Jackman's now going to really try and work hard to get his head down to get onto the back of Michael Benham. But yeah, it was a great move by Gustavo Jackman there on Paul McNeely. I do feel bad for Paul because he's done an awesome job keeping all those cars at bay. Sorry
to report that Craig Dolby has ducked into the pits. Not sure as the reason why. And in the GTOpen class, that's Manuel da Costa who currently leads it as the fight for 4th swings through farm into village as Biaggi thought about coming from about 10 metres back to the inside of Miguel Ramos, and he does it again. And Biaggi's going for 2 cars at once. Oh, that's so close.
If he makes this stick.
He's going to. That is magnificent driving from Thomas Biaggi, or is it? Phil Keane is the beneficiary as he's found a way past Miguel Ramos too. They head down the Wellington Straight. Paul McNeely, through all of it, has held on to 4th position despite the very best efforts of Thomas Biaggi and Phil Keane, and this is one of the dices of the season.
Move of the day by Thomas Biaggi. Blimey, that was an awesome move. Yeah, hard to get up the inside of anyone there when he tried it on 2 cars, let alone one, and he's looking up the inside of Paul McNeely, but he won't have the legs down the straight, unfortunately.
Paul McNeely, in his international GTOpen debut, takes on the multiple world GT champion Thomas Biaggi, and at the moment it's advantage McNeely, but for how much longer? They swing
Phil Keane's having a look as well.
Now, are we into the penultimate lap of the race? Yes, we are. Phil Keane is trying it too. He's fighting with Thomas Biaggi for the championship lead. Miguel Ramos is also in the championship fight as well. He's the reigning champion. So this is a battle with multiple implications. Meanwhile, Gustavo Jackman has also checked out. He's off in pursuit of Michael Benham.
To see Craig Dolby out of the car. They've obviously got a problem down there in the pits, and got to see him out after yesterday's win.
Real pity for Craig Dolby and Thomas Enker. Now, Thomas Biaggi, we know he's late on the brakes. How late does he fancy it into Stowe? Not quite as late
as Phil Keane.
Exactly. Phil Keane thought about looking to the inside of Thomas Biaggi. They come out to Stowe, and Biaggi's surely going to have the run into Vale.
Just got a bit of an overlap. Yeah, he's got to be late on the brakes here. Paul doesn't want to let him go, but beautiful move there. Really well executed, and he's definitely a man on the move.
Lovely move from Thomas Biaggi, and McNeely slithers wide. Phil Keane's going to go through and gain the place, but Miguel Ramos can't quite keep that hole open long enough to also slip past. It's been a really fine drive from Paul McNeely in this ferocious fight for 4th. We're only on the penultimate lap of the race, and Miguel Ramos, he wants to come back at Phil Keane. He can't see the gap to the inside of McNeely, and the other great thing about this battle is it has been so clean.
He's finds his way through, but yeah, Paul can't really fight that. Just brushes the back of him, but yeah, you got to remember Paul's a bronze graded driver. He's out there against gold, silver graded drivers that are pro racing drivers, as we see. Oh, Michael Benham being caught by Gustavo Jackman.
We're into the last lap of the race for Sally Yuluk, but this is the fight we're watching. It is for 2nd and 3rd. Michael Benham has been caught by Gustavo Jackman. Benham, who did a very good job of finding a way past Paul McNeely, building a bit of a buffer, but now his mirrors are filled with Teo Martin Motorsport BMW as they accelerate towards Copse for the final time. Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy looking to get their championship challenge back on track, as are Gustavo Jackman and Fernando Mornier. We still have got 6 races to go at the end of this lap.
Michael Benham's going to have to work really, really hard there. He's not got the straight line speed like the Ferrari did, which made Jackman's life quite difficult. So he's going to have to work really hard here and go very defensive into Stowe, as Jackman's already trying to make a move.
But what Michael Benham has got is a car that's a little bit more agile through the twisty bits, and it would suggest that if Benham can keep Jackman behind him into Stowe, he might just be able to hold on. And Benham moves across, he covers the inside line, comes back to the racing line. That's really smart driving from Michael Benham, not over-defending from Miguel Ramos from Gustavo Jackman to harm his corner exit, and it means that Jackman, he's not going to be close enough to challenge into Vale. Benham just sticks to the racing line. Does he get the car stopped and hooked up on time? We'll find out through the next camera angle at Club, as Sally Yuluk, meanwhile, negotiates the loop. We've seen nothing of Sally, but he has driven absolutely magnificently in the TF Sport Aston Martin. He and Ewan Hankey have arguably been well overdue a victory so far in the 2016 campaign, and it is going to come at their home event in Silverstone as Yuluk swings through Brooklands for the final time and then around Luffield. Hopefully nothing's going to go wrong. It doesn't, as Sally Yuluk now, he just needs to accelerate and negotiate Woodcote, which he does with aplomb. It's going to be victory in the 8th round of the International GT Open for Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey. They take the home win for TF Sports. The applause and smiles in the garage, but here is the fight for second and third. Michael Benham and Gustavo Jackman, and the McLaren is as wide as the circuit is behind. Phil Keane trying everything with Thomas Biaggi. Oh, and Benham runs wide through Luffield. This is the opportunity for Jackman.
Shouldn't have the legs. Oh, Jackman's got it. Yeah,
It's nose to nose as they come through Woodcote. It's going to be almost a dead heat at the flag. Who's got it on the line? Gustavo Jackman takes second place by 6/1000ths of a second from Michael Benham, with Thomas Biaggi holding on for fourth, Phil Keane in fifth. 6th place goes to Miguel Ramos and 7th to Paul McNeely. What an incredible sprint to the line. The Teo Martin Motorsport team celebrate on the pit wall. Well, Michael Benham drove absolutely superbly, but there was nothing he could quite do with the sprint to the line from Gustavo Jackman. And, well, the last 15 minutes of this race, Jim, I don't know where to start. It was just wall-to-wall dicing.
I'm not going to lie, it looked like the start of a 15-minute sprint race, not the end of an hour endurance race. But, yeah, tremendous job there by Gustavo Jackman to get second across the line.
So, absolutely wonderful racing. Congratulations to Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey. They score the victory. So, moment to enjoy for Yuluk and Hankey. Here is another look then at that fight for second place as they came out of Luffield, and just running a little bit wide was Michael Benham. It meant that Gustavo Jackman had got the inside line through Woodcote, and as they came to the flag, it was Jackman who edged it 6/1000ths of a second for the BMW, but nonetheless super performance from Michael Benham. So very happy Ewan Hankey marching down pit lane, as we'll have a look at the classification then. So Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey take the win. Second place, Gustavo Jackman and Fernando Monnier. Third, just Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy. Fourth, Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Cristani. Fifth for Sean Balfe and Phil Keane. Sixth place, Miguel Ramos and Peter Schotthorst. Then Paul McNeely and Jamie Stanley. A great debut in the FF Course Ferrari for 7th. Cobb Ledegar and Alex West in 8th, and Ledegar getting the fastest lap. GTAM win for Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardinia in 9th, ahead of Rob Weldon and Tom Ashton, who complete the top 10. And then we've got Philippe Barrieroth in 11th place alongside Martin Short. Unfortunately, we lost Craig Dolby and Thomas Engelaiton. So a look at the championship position then. Cristani and Biaggi, 22 points clear of Balfe and Keane, with Miguel Ramos in third. Yuluk and Hankey, Monnier and Jackman still all very much in the hunt with 6 races to go. Absolutely fantastic racing here at Silverstone as Sally Yuluk rolls into Parc Fermé, and some of the most magnificent dicing, and also so clean, so little contact, and that is GT racing, multi-mark GT racing at its very, very best. Sally Yuluk goes to celebrate with Ewan Hankey. Oh, they enjoyed that. and rightly so. The perfectly executed race for the TF Sport Aston Martin, the same Gustavo Jacobin. I think he would have enjoyed that too. So he goes to celebrate with the Teo Martin BMW team, but Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy should also be very, very proud of their performance to get on to the rostrum. It's a chance to do celebrations, big smile. Jacobin, he goes to congratulate Fernando Monnier. And that was a really aggressive, feisty drive from the Colombian, picking his way through the pack. And rewarded with a trip to the rostrum. We'll very shortly be able to hear from our race winners. Let's have a look at some of the best of the action.
Where are the boys?
Johan Hanke, Salih Yoluk, first win of the year, great race. How was it, Johan?
Yeah, for me it was good. Obviously had an interesting start, and then I just tried to keep up with the Ferrari. I mean, the car's super fast in a straight line, so I was just doing my best to try and make a big gap from the guys behind. I knew the Ferrari had a bit of a penalty, so I just put in every lap was a quali lap. Tried to keep up with him, handed it over to this guy, and wow, what can I say? Sal just drove an amazing drive. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, that's right. This guy made it very well in the final stint. Almost easy, or?
Oh, well, he made my job much easier actually by putting a big gap behind the guys. So yeah, it was relatively easier than yesterday, but we are so happy at the end, especially after how the race went yesterday.
Wonderful. It's great to have you on the podium.
Let's take a look back at the best of an absolutely fantastic race, and it was Jamie Stanley who led away from pole position in the FF course. Ferrari, as behind, there was some super dicey, not least between Sean Balfe and Rob Weldon. Balfe was busy picking his way through the order. Duncan Tappy was trying to keep Fabrizio Crostani, Peter Schutzhorst at bay. Front of the field, though, Jamie Stanley and Ewan Hankey running in tandem, but post pit stops, it all kicked off. Salih Yoluk emerged in the lead. Paul McNeely was in second. He was demoted first by Michael Benham, and then there was the charging Gustavo Jacobin, who elbowed his way past Miguel Ramos and then made a similarly bold move on Paul McNeely to snatch third place. McNeely, though, was doing a fine job in holding off others, but then Thomas Biaggi was able to slip his way past and gain the places for fourth. Phil Keane also able to overhaul McNeely, and that gave him fifth place. A few laps later, Ramos was also through to sixth position. Meanwhile, over the last couple of laps, as Salih Yoluk came through to take he and Ewan Hankey's first win in the International GTOpen for TF Sport. Gustavo Jacobin had reeled in Michael Benham, and as TF Sport celebrated, there was a drag race to the line with Gustavo Jacobin pipping Benham by 0.06 of a second. So second place to Jacobin and Monnier, third to Benham and Tappy. It was an absolutely magnificent race, and the closing stages were scintillating. Onto the rostrum once more for Benham and Tappy. Another trip to the podium for the Garage 59 duo. Runners-up, Gustavo Jacobin and Fernando Monnier. And race winners, Salih Yoluk and Ewan Hankey. TF Sport Aston Martin. British National Anthem in honour of the TF Sport Aston Martin team as third place for Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy. Really good drive from both of them and richly rewarded with a podium. Some home success for the Garage 59 McLaren squad. Runners up for the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW's Gustavo Jackerman and Fernando Monnier. And race winners Sally Uluk and Ewan Hankey. Huge grins, and rightly so. They had pretty much the perfectly managed race. They knew what they needed to do, and they did the job perfectly. TF Sports celebrating as well. It's been a fantastic weekend of racing here at Silverstone for the International GT Open. We are going to head off onto our summer break, but the 10th and 11th of September, the season reconvenes at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Until then, from Ben Evans and everyone at the GT Open, it's goodbye from Silverstone. See you in September.